dirty couch is blowing up, man.
No, they rocking with it for real, man. They rocking with it.
What's
I
the
think we on the
next?
show.
Yeah, what's the next move? What we need to do?
No, this is what we're gonna keep doing though. We're gonna keep promoting the rappers, man. You know, we got rappers trying to get up out the city. This is what we're gonna do though. We're gonna change. We're gonna try to get some promoters, some club promoters. Let's start talking to some club owners. You get what I'm saying? We're gonna start doing it like that, man. Get some.
Yeah, come on, man. Like, I think that's putting ourselves in a box. Like, no, let's talk to more politicians. Let's talk to preachers. Let's talk to, like, all these entrepreneurs in Augusta. Man,
oh, them episodes be boring. Them episodes be really boring, though. Look, if you look at the views go down on them type of episodes. Look at them politicians. Every time we put a politician on there, the views be low. Let's keep the views high. Let's talk about the fights. Let's talk about all these killings in the city. Like,
come, Neal, so we doing it for the views now? Like, I thought we was doing it for the community. Like, bro, like, you tripping, man. What do we need to do, Neal?
I think you might be right.
Dang, right. So who up next?
Man, thank y'all again for tuning in to On the Dirty Couch with the Blair Brothers. We got Faheem on the camera today. We have another local celebrity superstar in the building today, man. Before I introduce this amazing person, I just want to tell you that this interview is just, it was meant to be. The way things were set up, it was just meant to happen. We've seen this man a couple of times. We seen him in the commissioner's chamber. That was the first time we seen him. We was going looking for tax lien houses. We seen him at one time, and he just had this amazing presence. Then we seen him again at the top 10 of 10 for the Chamber of Commerce, honoring my cousin Carlton Clay. The third time was when I knew it was just, the timing was just right. My brother and I, we were always talking about him, like, man, it's something about that man right there, man. This man right here, something about him. The third time I seen him, I was randomly going to the bank like I always do. I go to the bank like maybe 2-3 times a week to kind of give the deposits from our business. And I seen him again. I said, man, I know this ain't the same man I keep seeing. So I went to the bank teller when he kind of walked away. I was like, is that Mr. Stephen Kendrick? She's like, yeah, he do. He does all the taxes. I was like, man, I got nervous immediately. And I was just like, I ain't gonna bother. He probably got a lot of stuff going on. I ain't gonna mess with him. I'm just gonna walk on out. So I walked on out to the parking lot. By the time I was halfway to the truck, someone said, no, just wait on him. Wait on him. Don't miss your opportunity. Just wait on him. I said, man, I don't want to mess with him, man. I sat in the truck. I cut on the air, and I just sat there. I cut on the radio, and I just waited for a few minutes. And I'm looking out the rearview mirror. I'm like, man, I ain't even want to turn around. I'd say about 5 or 6, I ain't gonna lie, it's probably like 10-15 minutes. I waited, I ain't gonna lie. 10 to 15 minutes, I looked in the rearview mirror and I seen him coming out. My heart dropped. I was like, man, I was scared. I was like, man, I ain't gonna do it. Some say dope, man. Some say dope. I opened up the door. I said, Mr. Kendrick. I think I might have mumbled it, but he heard me. He said, hey, how you doing? I was like, do you have a few minutes? He said, yeah, I got a few minutes. And I went up to him, shook his hand. I said, hey, I'm Neal Blair. My brother and I have a LawnCare business, and we just been seeing you all the time. And it's just, I just had to say something to you. And I was just wondering if you were interested in being on our podcast. My brother and I, we've had our eyes on you. The radio's been on you, and we just wanted to know if you were interested. He said, I said, are you interested in being on our podcast? He said, what's the name of your podcast? I said, On the Dirt. Before I can even say On the Dirty Couch, he's like, that's y'all. Yeah, I seen you. I seen Janice Allen Jackson interview. Yeah, that's y'all. I was like, yeah, man. And it was an honor that he had actually seen the episode, man. I asked him, and I say 5-minute conversation. He was like, yeah, I'll do it. He gave us a time and date, and we sitting here right now, man. So today, it's an honor, it's a privilege, man. It's a pleasure to have the tax commissioner of the Augusta or Richmond County, the tax commissioner, Mr. Stephen Kendrick on the Dirty Couch. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. That was an interesting story.
No, that's real though. Did it happen just like that though?
You were outside that day in your truck, making your deposit. I saw you inside the bank too. And you waited for me, and it was indeed a true story. You told that just right. When you said who you were, I immediately went back to the 2 versions I had seen. I saw Janice and Harold Jones, wow. And I just happened to be looking, and I stopped and I watched it, and I thought it was very interesting, very insightful. I know Janice and Harold both very well. Didn't think about myself necessarily being on it, so I must say to you, I'm honored to be here. I'm glad I get to be a part of the number. I'm on the couch.
It's legendary. It's legendary.
Everybody can't be on the couch.
I know that's right.
All right. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you so much. Now, you graduated from FAMU. You can kind of tell the people your accolades. You kind of graduated from FAMU. You graduated from Westside.
I did. I'm a Westside Patriot. I graduated in 1986. Then went on to Florida A&M University, as you mentioned. I majored in business administration. I finished there in 1990. Thought about going to law school. Did some graduate school exams, law school exams, and made the decision just to go to grad school instead. So I went to Florida A&M's graduate school and graduated from there with an MBA in 1991. My first job outside of college was for Hallmark Cars in Kansas City, Missouri. I was part of their management training program. And so I did that for a year. And then I started to do some sales for them. But once I became a part of the sales climate, at that time, back in the early 90s, a lot of these companies were trying to diversify and make sure that sales ranks had talented people in them. And so I was recruited by a pharmaceutical company to sell their products. And so I made a move back to Augusta. I always wanted to be back in Augusta, even though at that time I was in Kansas City and had moved to Austin, Texas. I moved back to Augusta so that I could sell pharmaceuticals and be back a part of a family business and just a part of what I grew up knowing. I was more comfortable at home. I wasn't a part of the folks who said, I gotta get out of here. I was away and I wanted to come back. And so the rest became a mix of working in a pharmaceutical company, working with a family business. At some point, I don't know if you guys knew it, at one point back earlier in my career, I ran for mayor of Augusta.
Wow, I didn't know that.
And here I am today, many years later, as the tax commissioner and hopefully continuing to serve the community and the citizens well. So I have a very, very interesting background of work and history, but I am proud of what we try to do, and I'm only 49. I got a lot more to do.
Still a young man.
I got a lot. My father and mother are both in their 70s, and my father's still actively working. So if I follow their footsteps, I have at least 25, 30 more years of work. So I think I'll be out here working. I can't sit still.
Now, when I came up to you, I told you it's to inspire our youth in my crowd or my generation. So I kind of want you to give a backdrop of your story, because just like you said, your dad has his own business. So I want you to tell the people about that business and how that kind of molded you into the person that you are today.
Well, sure. Well, back my family, when I was born in what used to be called Augusta Homes on East Boundary, the bottom.
That's the spot, man.
And so Augusta Homes was where my family lived at that time. My grandmother, my mother's maiden name is Nipper, and my grandmother lived on the corner of 7th and Walton Way. And my father's from the country, out of Hancock County. And so when they got married and lived down there, I was born there, and we soon though moved from there up on the hill. My father started his own business. He bought a business back in 1972. My father's been in his own business for 35, 40 years. He has a business, a printing business called Augusta Blueprint. It has been continuous in business for that number of years, and with that, a lot of what I've learned about the world and life has been through that lens. My mother, who is one of 11 siblings, grew up in Harrisburg, and she matriculated through college when I was going to high school. So my parents and my mother felt that my education was so important that my mother decided she was going to go back to school when I was in school. So we did a lot of actually working together, which is pretty funny. But my father, as long as I remember, has always been in his own business. And that provides a unique opportunity as an upbringing for you to understand how the world works. My father had to make payroll, and so there were days and times in which in the business everybody got paid but him. That's how it works.
We know a lot about that, man. I'm telling you.
And with that though, we learned the importance of managing, being involved in the community, salesmanship, just a number of things. So I grew up in a family business, and so I swept floors at an early age. I emptied trash in the weekends. My father's business, I can remember I was probably 12 or 13 years old, and if I come and I clean up the whole building, I could earn $5.
That was it.
$5, I can tell you, $5 was it. I'm telling you. So what you could do with $5, he was downtown. So I could walk up on Broad Street, which isn't a big deal nowadays. But back then, Broad Street had Orange Julius. Y'all might not know what that is.
No.
So
It sounded like it was lit though.
It was a restaurant. And the Orange Julius was next to Pyramid Music.
Okay, we know Pyramid.
So I could get my $5 and go downtown and buy me a drink from the Orange Julius, and then go and see Flash at Pyramid and pick a record and use that money that I had just earned in my own way. My father let me just walk downtown. And I did that for a number of years, cleaned up. Now, he soon paid me a little more. He didn't ever give up much past 10 though. Now, my daddy wouldn't give it up.
$5 more, that was it.
Wasn't going much past.
Salary cap.
Wasn't going much, yeah, I was on the salary cap.
Yeah.
And I was the #1 draft pick, but I was not getting a whole lot. But it allowed me to watch what would happen in his world every day. So it went from Saturdays to summertimes during school was out. So sometimes I could work on the weekday. And my father, while he has never been elected to office, has always been very community oriented and very politically connected. And so with that, I would see all of the Lee Beards and Willie Mays and Reverend Hamilton and all of the officials would come and have discussions and talk. And believe it or not, I would sit outside the door and listen, because I couldn't go to the meetings, but I could listen and see what was going on and hear what was going on and hear our problems were solved in this community. And so I grew up with that, all with the idea at that time of thinking, well, one day I'm going to go off and I'm going to own my own business. That was my thought. So when I graduated from high school and I went to Florida A&M on a business scholarship, I did well in school. I like school. I'm a pretty good student. I don't mind studying. But when it was time to come out and I got my job offers, I just longed for home. So I remember telling my dad, hey, I don't want to do this job anymore. I want to come back and work for the family business. Now, you heard me tell you that my dad was paying me $10 in the summer. Well, during this time period, the business wasn't doing as well, and it certainly couldn't afford me. So what he told me was, I don't mind if you get home, but we're not in a position to have you come and work here at this business right now. But I didn't let that deter me. I got the transfer, I went home, and then my father and I got an opportunity to do something that was phenomenal. Georgia was looking at having a lottery, and the state of Georgia was looking to make sure that everyone got a chance to be involved in that lottery business. So my father put in a bid to be the official printer for the Georgia Lottery.
That's big.
And lo and behold, we got that contract to do that. So when the lottery was introduced in the 90s, we created a business that was the official online lottery retailer, and online lottery printer, should I say. So we printed what we call the content for lottery. So if you go in the store right now and you buy a lottery ticket, and you pay a Mega Millions, you get a little receipt that comes out that's printed on this paper. Well, those paper comes off of rolls. And our business manufactured hundreds and thousands of those rolls for those lottery machines. And so we had that business for almost 15 years. Cost pressures, as with anything, allowed or forced us to at some point sell and close that business, because as the lottery was attempting to make more money, it was attempting to cut its costs. And we were the biggest line item in the lottery. They paid more for printing than they paid for anything. we were a small printer, so we didn't have what they call the economies of scale. You know, the larger volumes you buy, the more you can get. But we were only printing lottery tickets. Believe it or not, at that time we were printing for a couple of states. We were printing for Georgia. We got a contract for Tennessee. We got a contract for New Jersey. But even with those, there were lottery printers out there that were much larger than us and were able to buy for a much lesser price and then offer the state of Georgia a much lesser cost. And so at one point they asked us to reduce our cost so much that we knew that we could not reduce it that much and still make money. So we basically got out of that business. Well, when we did that, I had gone full-time to work for him. I had eventually left my pharmaceutical sales business that I told you about when I was recruited. I left that business at some point because our business was doing well, and I went to work for the lottery business full-time. Did that for a number of years. As things began to get tighter, we used all the management skills I learned in this graduate school to try to do what we could. But at some point, it became apparent that we were going to have to do something different. So in 2006, there had been an occasion where Bob Young, who was the former mayor of Augusta, had been appointed to the HUD department. And so we were without a mayor. And our interim mayor became Mr. Willie Mays, who was the owner of Mays Funeral Home. Willie had been a county commissioner for some time, and he was a part of the commission at that time, but he became our interim mayor. Well, he soon after that was defeated in a race with what became one of our longest standing mayors, Mr. D. Copenhagen. In 2006, I believe, was when D. Copenhagen, I think it was about 2006, D. Copenhagen decided he wanted to become mayor. And he ran against Willie Mays, and he was able to win that race. But in his first year of D. Copenhagen becoming the mayor, I was 35 years old, I was 38 years old. I decided, you know, why not me? Why him? And so I threw my hat in that ring in 2006 to run for mayor. That was my first run for elected office. It was a long run, it was a hard run, and I came in third place. I ran against two other men. One was named Ronnie Pugh, who was our former fire chief, and another man named Mr. Gil Gilliard. That race taught me a lot, though. It taught me about politics. It was a countywide race. It taught me a lot about politics. It taught me a lot about how to run a campaign. And at that time, I decided in 2006, I'm probably going to do that again. But most of the time, it's a reason why incumbents usually win. It's because name recognition is so high for them that it's really hard for you to compete. So in 2006, when I did not win, I was set to sit on the sidelines for the next 4 to 8 years, because not winning in 2006, it was going to be difficult for me in 2010, because not only was he had been the mayor for 4 years, but his name recognition was very high. And it was very difficult to raise money. And then potentially I could have been there to 2014, because if he won again, so I could really be on the sidelines for a long time. And then I heard a rumor that the tax commissioner was going to retire in 2007. So I began to listen and hear, and I heard some rumors about there were some folks that wanted to run for that. There was a former county commissioner named Mr. Tommy Boyles from District 7 who had decided he was going to run. There was a lot going on with that, and so I decided, let's do some research on that position. Well, in doing the research, I found out what a tax commissioner does, and that it was an administrative position that allowed you to use all of the skills that you have in HR, finance, management, to manage an office. It's not an office that requires you to have any necessarily special accounting skill, because you have staff members to do that work, but what you needed was the ability to have a vision and governance and policy. We had the same tax commissioner for 31 years, so most of the people did not know anything about the man was named Jerry Saul. And a lot of people used to tell the joke that I know it's a guy that named Jerry Saul and I don't know who he is, but I send him a check every year for my car. You probably say that about me right now.
Yeah, I'm telling you, your name on it.
So Jerry Saul had been tax commissioner for 31 years. And so I decided I was going to run for that. But I got some pushback, because some people would say, well, why would you want to do something like the tax commission? Nobody likes the tax commission because you pay them money.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to reflect on that and think about that, and I looked at it and said, well, how can I change the image of the tax commission? So if you looked at the office, and you guys will remember this because this was 8 years ago, but the tax office was in pretty much of a shambles. It was not a place that people liked to go to. The facilities were awful. The people weren't necessarily as friendly as they needed to be. So I decided, you know, why not? It'll keep me active, it'll allow me to run in new ways, and it meets the skill set in which I felt like I had. So I jumped in that race. I was successful, and in 2008, when I ran, I was able to win in August of 2007 and win the Democratic primary. Didn't have any, 2008, and didn't have any Republican opposition. So in August of 2008, I was technically the de facto tax commissioner. I was going to start in 2009 in January. And thus my journey with that office began. And we have worked really hard to try to improve that, and I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about that. But my story prior to then was not really knowing, and I talk about this with people sometimes, your state in life today is not necessarily where you'll be tomorrow. Because if you think about my story, just 12 years ago, I thought I was going to be in the printing business. 2 years ago. 2 years ago, 2 years after that, I thought I was going to be the mayor. A year after that, I was a tax commissioner. Now, I didn't plan when I grew up to say, you know what, I want to be the tax commissioner. But what it taught me was that you need to be prepared for opportunities as they come about. Always understand what's going on in your community and look to do things to advance yourself and use the skill set you have. And so, I don't know other than grace and hard work as to why I was able to do that, but I'm really proud of that track record and what I did up until that point. The last 8 years have been just a little bit different, but that's how I got to where I was. I'd done quite a few things before then.
And the music you're hearing in the background right now, man, this is Arthur Chapman, man, aka Art Love. You're hearing this beautiful tunes right now, man. He has this out right now, man. And Art Chapman is actually sponsoring this episode, man. And this is called Elemental. I want you all to support Arthur Chapman. His Facebook is Art Love. His IG and Twitter is Art of Love with 4 E's. He is sponsoring this episode with the tax commissioner, Mr. Stephen Kendrick. Shout out to Arthur Chapman, man. Salute. All right, so tell the people what exactly is the job of the tax commissioner.
The tax commissioner's office is a very unique position. It is what they call a constitutional office. The Georgia State Constitution provides there are 4 elected officials in each county that were created in that Georgia Constitution that no local community can necessarily just take out and take away. There's a difference between elected officials. The sheriff, the probate judge, the clerk of courts, and the tax commissioner were all created to do work not only on behalf of counties, but on behalf of the state. If you think about what a sheriff does in most cities or most communities, a sheriff mans the jails, and our jails are state jails. They are run by a state prison system. If you look at tax commissioners, we issue tags. Tags are state tags. They say Georgia. Each county is a political subdivision, and those counties do their work, but they need tax commissioners to issue them on behalf of the state. Probate judges, as I mentioned, issue marriage licenses, firearms licenses. Those are all state licenses. So a tax commissioner is a state official as well as a local official that has to do work on behalf of both entities. His primary function is the billing and collection and then distribution of funds for governing entities. Those governing entities locally would be our county commission, our school board, and the state of Georgia. So what happens on a normal place, as most of your viewers would come in contact with them, most of them have cars, and some of them even have property they both cars and property, real property or homes and land, are taxed in Georgia. Those taxes have to be billed. And so it's the tax commissioner's function to bill those customers for those items. Now it's interesting, the tax commissioner does not come up with how much you pay. He doesn't come up with the value of those properties. His part of the equation is the billing and collection and distribution. So how the three-headed monster works, there's an official that works for the Board of Assessors in the city called the chief appraiser or the tax assessor. They are responsible for valuing the lands, for homes, for land and cars. They determine values for property. Those values are given to the tax commissioner through what used to be normal paperwork at rudimentary times and now through computers. The governing authorities, which would be for us, the state of Georgia, the county commission, and our school board, they use millage rates to levy taxes. In other words, they assign a rate to property and they give them to the tax commissioner as well. So we take the values on one hand and the rates from those levying authorities and we put them in the computer, and out what spits out is a bill that's based on those two items. Those bills are mailed out in Richmond County to 81,000 parcels and people, and we register 150,000 cars a year. Those bills go out and we're responsible for the collection of those monies. We collect about $160 million in property taxes every year. Every year. That comes through our office. And when we collect those monies, we are then responsible for accounting for them and then redistributing them back to the people who gave us those rates. So when I collect those monies, I give them back to the school board for what their rates were. I give them back to the county for their rate, and I give them back to the state for their rate. Our role is simply to bill, collect, account for, and distribute those monies. It's funny that the state of Georgia thought it smart to separate the duties of all of these different individuals so that one person couldn't have too much power.
That makes sense.
So you don't have someone who does the values and does the collection. You can't do it without the other party. I can't bill without a rate or a value. But they can't set the value and collect the money too.
Can't do it.
But they were also smart enough to say, we need to entrust the person who collects the money, and we want them to be responsible to us directly. So what they decided was citizens elect who gets the money. They want to be able to touch and vote for who collects their money. Now, you can work for the government and decide what the value is. But if you're going to handle my money, I want to have something to say about it. And so the tax commissioner's office is an elected office. And so I'm elected every 4 years by the people, and I run in a countywide race. And each term, they have an ability to decide whether or not I've done my job, as in the collection and billing and distribution of that, and provided all those services in a friendly manner to them. So that is what we primarily do. There's lots of caveats. People can get exemptions and find ways to pay lesser. Those things all happen in our office. But primarily what we do is we raise the money. We collect the money.
Now, what was very interesting about that, my brother and I, it kind of caught us off guard when we were in the commissioner's chambers. When you said, I don't work for the state, like, who do you work for? Like, who is the person that you...
Interestingly enough, if you're a voter in Richmond County, I work for you. I report to the people. I'm like the sheriff and the mayor, who don't have direct bosses. My bosses are the people of the community. Every time I go out to the grocery store, I get stopped by somebody who says, hey, let me ask you a question. And I answer those questions. I'm not at all offended by people asking me out on my personal time about their business that goes on in my office. Now, it's sometimes inconvenient, but that goes with the work. That's what I asked for. I had a choice. And so oftentimes I could be anywhere and people say, let me ask you a question about my property. And I answer those questions. And so I report to those people and I try to respond in kind to those people every day.
Now, you sure you want to put that out there to the people? They're gonna be running up to you. 18, 19-year-olds gonna be coming up to you. You want that?
And they do. And they do it now. They do it now. I wear my tax commissioner shirt with what I am and what I do quite a bit, almost every day. And I go to Waffle House with my shirt on. I go to Publix with my shirt on.
So they know where you are then.
And when I go, people ask, when they see tax commissioner's office, they can I ask you a question. You know, my mother's having a problem. When she didn't get her bill, we can take care of that. When you are a servant to the people, you expect that. Again, it was a choice I made. And it's never been intrusive. It's never been nothing that we couldn't handle. So we don't mind that at all. It keeps me in touch with the folks. You know, I'll tell you something interesting. Our office is one of the only tax commissioner's offices in the state of Georgia that's open on Saturdays.
Wow.
And one of the reasons we do that is because on Saturdays I get a better chance to talk to folks, because during the week I'm doing so many other different things that I don't get to talk to folks. So I go in and work on Saturdays, the first and last Saturday in each month, and I go in and I talk to people about what we're doing and what they think about government. And so I embrace the opportunity to talk to people. I'm glad when they come up and talk to me. And the best conversations are usually the criticisms, because you can't learn unless you understand how you're not serving people the best way. So we encourage it and we like it. So feel free to call me. It's fine. I'll take it.
He gave y'all permission, y'all, so y'all go ahead.
Call me.
Get them.
Call me.
Now, a lot of our viewers are millennials. I'm a millennial myself. Our biggest thing is money. You get what I'm saying? So we want to make sure it's money in everything that we do. So I think I seen where you were like a six-figure, like you make like 6 figures a year, right?
I do.
All right, so how does that, and another thing I read up on was did you dictate how much you wanted to make when you came in, or what was that situation?
Yeah, that was not quite. Remember I told you the story that the guy who was there before me, Jerry Saw, had been there 31 years. Well, actually, we had a sheriff who'd been in the sheriff's department for 30-something years. We had a clerk who'd been there for 20-some-odd years, and a probate judge who'd been there for 30 years. So Richmond County hadn't had an opportunity to take on a new constitutional officer in decades.
Wow.
So when it was time for me to start, the HR department asked me a question about, hey, what are we supposed to be paying you? Because they had not set a new salary for a new officer. So tax commission salaries are set by a minimum across the state. But one of the things the commissioners who were there told me in the HR department is that it was typical policy in Richmond County that if you were leading a department, you made at least 15% above the employee who was the highest paid employee in your department. Didn't seem for them to make a lot of sense that you are the boss and you make $5 an hour, but the people who report to you make 10. So with that, there was an employee who was already working at an office and had worked there for probably 20 years, who was making about $95,000 a year at that time. So we simply applied the same formula to what they said. We took the $95,000 and multiplied it times 15%, came up like $112,000, and so the initial salary was that. Where the rub came was they asked me about it. I wasn't even an employee for the city yet. I was still a regular Joe. And so when they asked me about it, I sent them a letter based upon what I thought, based on what I just told you. When it came time, they paid me that. I didn't work for the city, so I.
So what was the pushback? Like, why were people mad about that? That you told them that you wanted to make this, you came up with this formula, which was accurate.
It was their formula. Politics. It was just politics. It was certainly. I probably laid the groundwork for others later to do it better, and now the city better understands how to do that. But it was really politics. There was a guy making $96,000 there. I ended up starting off making, I think, $114,000 and some change, and that was my salary. I thought it was fair that I make more than the other guy who worked for me, and that's what it was based in. But it did become political because some felt as though it should have been dictated by the commission directly, although I didn't work for the government, so I wasn't sure how it all worked. I was a regular citizen like you. If you were elected tomorrow and they called you and said, hey, tell me what do you think you should be making? You'll do some research, you give them some information, but if they decide to pay you that, That's not you dictating.
Yeah, that's true.
Because I couldn't make it. So it became a political thing, but you know, it worked out in the end. I think I got used to and began to understand that's how things work. You know, they've had several salary rubs since then with other folks. They've had one with the sheriff when he went in, and when Judge McIntyre, when she went in, there were some issues there. It's always going to be some issues when you talk about salaries, but you know, it's okay. It's a fair wage. It was a fair wage then. I think it's fair now.
Now you're very successful, and just coming from the same streets of Augusta, a lot of us don't think we can make it. Especially a lot of us black males, you know, we getting shot down or we shooting each other, we in gangs and stuff like that. So what would you tell a younger version of yourself, or just a younger guy who's watching this, about how you can make it out of the adversity? You came from the same streets of Augusta.
Yeah. Well, and it's so funny. My family, as I told you, I was born in Augusta Homes, and although we moved to the hill later, you know, my aunt still lives on Sea Isle Drive, right down there, right now. I mean, still to this day. All of us have families and connections all over the community. But I think what has to happen is there has to be a single-mindedness that says, I want to be successful in whatever your view of success is. Now, it's funny, for me, it wasn't always about money. For me, I was one of those people who always wanted to lead something. My goal was I wanted to be somebody who led a group of people. Now, I like making a nice salary, but I wanted to leave where I make what I make now, or half of what I make now. I still want to do the same type of thing. I think for most of the young folks out there, once they find and identify a role model who's doing what it is they want to do, you saddle up and you ride. I've got a group of young men that I'm going to be working with. We're meeting on this Friday. There's 12 men in this community I'm working with. I'm doing a proposal to. They range in age from 25 to 45. I have a foundation that I am going to start a program aimed at African American males for, that these 12 men don't know yet that they're going to be working with.
That's big.
These young men, and I call them young men because they're younger than I, but they are indeed men and they're all gainfully employed, are all the types of folks who want to have an impact on other people in their lives. And so what we're going to do is decide how we're going to introduce principles of life skills, leadership skills to this group of young men. But we all should be doing that. And I think that it starts with every man deciding that it's a part of what they want to do. The men that I'm talking about are regular folks just like me. Not any of the other ones are elected officials. There's a postman, there's a lawyer, there's a guy that works in a plant facility. They do all kinds of things. There's a banker, and they all come from very rich, diverse backgrounds. One of the guys, as he mentioned that y'all went to Josie. One of them's a graduate of Josie. All of them have something in their background that says, I had some struggle. You know, some of the friends that I'm talking about have had family members who are incarcerated. I have family members who are incarcerated. I have family members who are on public assistance. We all have that in our background. But what we're going to collectively come together and do is show this group of 35 young men that all of us are doing something different, but we're all doing something.
Absolutely.
And we're all doing something big. And I think that it starts with you as a young man being out there and saying, I want to be like somebody I see. And then us being able to connect with you as well. Absolutely. And we're going to look to do that. We're going to continue to do that. So I hope and pray for those type of folks every day. Our school system is struggling. I don't know the answers to that one. It's just so many problems that are out there. But we're going to do our part, one kid at a time. There's going to be some 9th graders and 10th graders, 11th and 12th graders that in September, they're going to meet 12 men that'll say, we're going to be here for you. Don't run away from us, because we're going to be here every month for you. And we hope they get it. We hope they'll get it.
Yes, sir. Now, for the sake of time, we're going to go ahead and cut this short. I hope you can join us another day. Mr. Kendrick, Thank you all again for tuning in to On the Dirty Couch with the Blair Brothers. This is another episode of On the Dirty Couch, and we have the Tax Commissioner, Mr. Stephen Kendrick. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Hey, I'm on the Dirty Couch with the Blair Brothers. You need to watch us. This is Stephen Kendrick, Tax Commissioner, Augusta, Richmond County. Everybody can't ride on the Dirty Couch, but I'm here, and you should be here too. See what we got to offer.
Exxon Valdez, you're pouring oil on me, trying to weigh me down there.